Caravelle is a Suikoden manga anthology released in 2001 and contains several short stories from the series up to that point. Most of the stories are lighthearted or have a humorous twist, but some explore more serious themes. Many of the contributing authors also worked as artists for the main series or the Card Stories cards. And while I can't show you the entire manga here, I'll be giving a recap of the stories within it to give you an idea of what it's about. The manga doesn't name the protagonist of either game, but I will be referring to them as McDole and Ryu for simplicity's sake. A good night's sleep begins late one night in the castle on Lake Torin. We see Victor chasing someone through the halls of the castle, but as more people are revealed, it's clear that they're not chasing a thief, but racing towards something. It's revealed that there's a new bed in the castle and the people are racing to claim it. Victor is adamant it belongs to him, but Flik is about to reach it and tells Victor it's first come, first served. Just as Flik is about to claim the bed, Stallion jumps in and gets to it first. As Stallion tells the losers they'll have to make do with straw, the other members of the Liberation Army lament that the castle doesn't have enough beds. Flik asks Victor where he stole it from in the first place, but Victor says that he actually made it himself. Apparently, he found a stone slab in the castle, placed some straw on it, and covered it with a cloth. Luke comes up behind them, looking quite angry, just as Victor reveals that the stone slab he used was the stone tablet of promise. The next morning, Gremio and McDole come to wake everyone up for breakfast and find Stallion, Victor, and Flik unconscious on the floor, and Luke coldly states, "There weren't enough beds." Waymarker shows Nanami comforting Ryu after he skips dinner because he's worrying about the path he's chosen and how it can affect not just himself, but everyone around him. Nanami reminds him that everyone trusts him and they will follow wherever he leads them, and he is not alone and doesn't need to face everything on his own. He can rely on his friends. So if he ever feels like he's about to lose his way, they can be a waymarker for him. But most of all, he has his big sister with him, and she will always be by his side and will always guide him back home. With that reassurance, she invites him to join her for dinner, and they leave. The next day, Victor and Flik find Ryu following a trail of food like a dog, left by Nanami, who has taken her role as a waymarker quite literally. Where the Wind Settles retells the ending of Suikogaiden Volume 2 from Julie's perspective. At the end of Suikogaiden, Nash receives a message from his sister Julie in the form of a cameo she always wore around her neck. The cameo once held a portrait of the person most important to her inside it, but now it's empty. Nash takes this as a sign that Julie no longer wants anything to do with him and goes on an aimless journey. However, as this manga reveals, Julie removed the picture precisely because she knew that if he opened the cameo and saw it empty, it would remind him of her crying face. She did this because up until that point, Nash had been unable to live his own life. As she tells Lena, now that the Lakje family is gone, she has to free him from his final shackle to her, because Nash deserves to live in a world where he's free to choose his own path. The Headquarters is full of love is a gag manga divided into 5 sections. Because it's just a joke, there isn't much story to recap, and it mostly showcases the eccentricities of the people you recruit. The sections are Legend of the Number 1 Manic Collector, and is about Ryu and the weird people he's recruited. Legend of the Sounds of the Heart is about Connell. Legend of Bonaparte is about Millie and Bonaparte. Legend of Red and Blue is about Ryu teasing Miklatov and Camus. And finally, Beyond the Legend of Bonaparte deals with the possibility of Bonaparte not being the first of his name, as Millie has written number 2 on him for some reason. Flik's Situation is a 4-coma story where Flik catches Camus napping and decides to play a prank on him by drawing whiskers on him. Unfortunately, Nanami comes in right as he's leaning over him and thinks he's about to kiss him. She later tells Leona about it and exaggerates the story further and says Flik was assaulting Camus. Because several people overheard her talking to Leona, rumors start spreading throughout the castle, making people avoid Flik and people send messages to Shu about it, leading him to question Camus about what happened. Because Camus hasn't heard the rumors, he thinks it's still about having his face drawn on. But since he's embarrassed, he doesn't want to talk about it, leading Shu to conclude the rumors were true and has Flik thrown in the dungeon. An Earnest match sees Jean, Rena, and Eiley happening upon the Matilda Knights training. Knowing that Miklatov will be uncomfortable with it, Camus invites the ladies to watch them spar. Rena thinks that they should offer a reward to the winner, to make the match a little more interesting, and suggests they will do anything the winner asks. While Jean happily agrees to the conditions, Eiley is apprehensive about it. Camus assures her that as knights, they would never request something improper of them, and she agrees as well. While Miklatov is flustered with the situation, Camus goads him into accepting the match. The match ends with Camus as the winner, and for his prize, he requests that the girls provide a home-cooked meal and treatment for any injuries sustained during the match. Not for him, but for Miklatov. As a flustered Miklatov is dragged away by the ladies, Camus looks on with an amused smile on his face. True Pretty Boy. Attack is another gag manga that's hard to summarize, since each story is only a page or two. But in the first story, Sasuke asks if he can try Nanami's cooking after Ryu refuses. Believing Sasuke to have a crush on her, she happily agrees. But after taking just one bite, Sasuke collapses. Mondo then appears to explain that part of a ninja's training involves ingesting poison once to build resistance to it, and he asks if he can try some too, much to Nanami's chagrin. Feelings Carried by the Melody is about McDowell remembering Ted. It begins with him recalling a wordless melody that Ted used to hum, a tune that always lifted his spirits. He once asked Ted what the song was called, but Ted said that he didn't even know if it had a name or where he first heard it. The scene shifts to the village of the Hidden Rune, right after Windy destroyed it. He realizes that the Ted that's crying now is different from the one he knew. The Ted he remembers was always cheerful and smiling. He sits down next to the younger Ted and starts humming the same tune his Ted used to. The younger Ted asks what the song is called, but he tells him that he doesn't know, though the person he learned it from said it always cheered him up. He finally understands what Ted meant. Receiving the Soul Eater was easy, but now they have to keep living to avoid losing it. He just hadn't realized how difficult that would be. The scene then shifts again to the end of the game. As he is preparing to leave Gregminster, he speaks with Cleo and asks her if just accepting everything people expect of you is being strong enough to face destiny, or just a weak soul resigning itself to it. Either way, he cannot accept that everything that has happened and everything that will happen is simply fate. Remembering Ted's last words, asking him to live for both of them, he tells Cleo that he's struggling to keep fighting right now, so he's leaving to avoid having to lose anything else important to him. As the title suggests, Night Before the Decisive battle occurs the night before the final battle, showing Eiley worrying about Ryu and how he's not his usual cheerful self after Nanami's death. Suddenly, he appears behind her carrying some bedding. He casually asks if she'd like to spend the night with him, which she is initially taken back by, but the misunderstanding is quickly cleared up when she sees several people accompanying him. Ryu explains that for as long as he can remember, he's never really slept by himself, but now, for the first time ever, he's woken up in the middle of the night and Nanami wasn't there. Knowing the next day will be crucial, he wants to get a good night's rest before the battle and invites as many people as he can for a sleepover in the meeting hall. Though Shu initially objects to using the hall this way, Apple persuades him since it's everyone's last night together. The next morning, Eiley wakes him up and they head to the final battle. The Young Master and Me tells the story of Gremio and McDowell visiting North Window, where they reunite with Victor and Flik for the first time since the end of the first game. During their conversation, Victor remarks that McDowell hasn't aged a day since they last met, which makes McDowell a little sad. This makes Gremio realize that one day he will die or be too old to care for him, and McDowell will be left alone. To prevent this, he goes around the castle asking for ways to live forever. Adlai proposes turning him into something like Gadget, but Gremio declines. He eventually goes to Luke and begs him to give him his true wind rune. Luke naturally refuses, but Gremio persists to the point that Luke has to ask McDowell to intervene. While McDowell initially chastises him for causing problems for everyone, Gremio explains that he just didn't want McDowell to end up alone. Flik tells McDowell that Gremio is a good guy at heart and that he should take good care of him, to which McDowell agrees. A Single Light is the longest story in Caravelle and takes place on Magician's Isle the day after McDowell left Gregminster at the very end of the game. Leknot asks Luke if McDowell made it safely to his destination, but Luke answers that while he was there to see him off, he has no idea where he was heading. As she thanks Luke for his service and turns to leave, he asks her why she feels so guilty about what happened to McDowell. She just did her job as the Stargazer. All she did was read the future. She didn't create it. There's no point in feeling guilty about it. Leknot wonders if that's really true and says that it has been weighing on her a lot lately. Even though she can see the future, she feels powerless to change it. And while she tends to push other people to shape their destinies, she lets herself be swept along by hers. Luke says that no one is free to live their life as they truly wish. Everyone has to do things they don't want to, or lose things they treasure. He reminds her that she once told McDowell to always do what you think is right. McDowell did that, not just for himself but for everyone. But doing what is right doesn't always lead to the best outcome. Leknot responds that even though she knew about the sins her sister had committed and would still commit, and the sorrow it would bring McDowell, she was unable to act because deep down she still hoped that Windy could be forgiven for her sins. Because she held on to that vain hope, her predictions came true, and now her sister is dead, and that is her punishment. As the last survivor of the Clan of the Gate, she will always be alone. Luke says that it's pointless to wish for things to be different. She can wish that Harmonia had never attacked her clan or that her true rune didn't exist. But that kind of thinking is a never-ending cycle. But she still has him, though, but he realizes that Leknot must have felt this way for a long time before they even met, so maybe he is not enough for her. As Leknot thanks Luke for his kindness, he realizes that he forgot to tell her something. After the battle for Gregminster ended, the generals of the former empire told him they were unable to find Barbarossa or Windy's bodies. He admits that it's not much, but at least there is a single light of hope that she will be able to see her sister again one day, and Leknot agrees. The Overenthustiastic Flying Squirrel Squad Does Its Best tells two stories primarily about Mukumuku. In the first part, Ryu notices that Mukumuku and his squad have been very active in the castle lately. While wondering what the reason could be, Tengar chimes in and says she might know because she saw him in front of Hayo's restaurant the other day. As they go to check the restaurant, they find him looking at a notice from Futan Chen, saying the person who contributes most to the castle will be invited to judge the next cook-off. Nanami says he should just have asked her and she would have cooked for him. Ryu and Tengar are not too sure that would be a good idea, but they do wonder if Mukumuku has actually told the rest of the squad why they are doing so much around the castle. In the second story, Ryu wonders if Mukumuku doesn't like him because he runs away every time he comes near him. Nanami decides to go around asking people for advice, but she doesn't have much luck as no one knows much about flying squirrels. Deciding to go straight to the source and just ask Mukumuku directly, Nanami suddenly finds Mukumuku and Ryu together again. She asks why they didn't tell her they made up, but Ryu had no idea Mukumuku was there, but as soon as he does notice him, Mukumuku immediately flies away, leaving Ryu and Nanami with the mystery unsolved. In finding Mr. Bear, Pilika wakes up one morning to find that her teddy bear, named Mr. Bear, has gone missing. As she steps outside to go look for it, she is accidentally knocked down by Sasuke as he chases Chaco, who has stolen a meat bun from him. As she is helped back up by Camus, she decides to ask the knights to help her find her bear, but due to her inability to speak, she tries to mime her request to them. To her shock, the knights are unable to understand what she wants and suggest they should find Ryu to help interpret, but they don't know where he is. Miklatov suggests they check the docks, as he often sees Ryu fishing there, but just as they are about to escort her there, they realize she's already gone. It turns out Pilika decided to head to the docks by herself, where she encounters Yamku and Tai-Ho. Yamku deduces that she's probably looking for Ryu, but just as he's about to take her to him, Tai-Ho jumps in and challenges her to a game, staying true to his hobby of gambling with children. If she wins, he'll take her to Ryu. Pilika manages to win by rolling a storm of fours, which stuns Tai-Ho as he didn't expect to lose to a kid, though you'd think he'd be used to it by now. Yamku takes her to the meeting room, but as she enters, it turns out Ryu isn't there either. She decides to draw what she wants this time instead and draws a picture of a bear on Templeton's map, despite his protests. Shu isn't interested in her, though, and tells her to go away, but even Shu proves unable to resist her tearful face and begrudgingly agrees to take her to the only bear he knows of in the castle, Victor. Victor doesn't really understand what's going on, but decides to help her find Ryu since he doesn't have anything better to do, as Leona isn't at the bar so he can't get a drink. They quickly find both Ryu and Nanami, and Nanami reveals that she's the one who took the teddy bear so Yoshino could mend a tear in it. As she's reunited with her bear, Ryu comments that with both Victor and the teddy bear there, it kind of looks like a mommy bear with her cub. What If the Leader is another collection of one-page gag mangas that explores how various things the player tends to do could be misconstrued. For example, the first one is called In the Name of Justice, and shows how the way you recruit certain characters could be considered a bit sus. In Trolling Why, Ryu investigates Freed and brings him along just to embarrass him. In Trolling Tessai the Master Blacksmith, it highlights how Tessai joined the army, hoping to work on legendary weapons like the Celestial Sword, but ends up working on odd items like bookbinders and pebbles. And in Complete, it pokes fun at how most players tend to spend the last part of the game finishing up the castle and gathering collectibles rather than heading to the final battle. The final story of Caravelle is another gag manga and the second story by Sho Yashioka and is again about Suikogaiden. The reason it says Volume 2 is because he did a story with the same title in another Suikoden anthology manga called Alliance. And if you're wondering why he seems so focused on Suikogaiden in particular, it's because he was actually the main artist and character designer of those games. This time, the story focuses on the back route of Chapter 3 in Suikogaiden Volume 2, where Nash is unfortunate enough to meet Meg, Millie, and Vicky, and goes on an adventure through time and space, all while Zaj is impatiently waiting for him.